everybody. So I'm here with Melissa Lanz. She is the founder and CEO of the Fresh 20. She is also a membership site consultant. She and I are in the same mastermind, and I'm so excited for you to meet her. So welcome, Melissa.
Hello.
Hello.
I always love your background. It always looks like someplace that I would want to go on vacation.
Yeah,
Your
you're
office.
welcome. You're welcome to come to Pennsylvania in 20-degree weather anytime you want from your nice,
Beautiful.
cozy, hippie living room in Santa Barbara. You are welcome to hop a plane and be in suburban Philadelphia anytime you want to hang out in my basement. So I am so excited that you're here because I think I had mentioned this to you when we first met, but I was like, Fresh 20. I was like, I've been using that forever. And I actually absolutely love the product. And it really is an incredible subscription that you started. How many years ago did you start that?
Oh my gosh, it's been an 11 and a half years. So I started April of 2010.
Yes.
It's
Yeah, I
crazy.
probably found you when you first started because I remember making those meals for my husband and I before I had kids. My oldest is 9.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. It's been quite a journey and learned so much along the way for sure. Yeah, when I started, oh my gosh. I mean, first of all, I quit a corporate job that was very high paying.
I didn't know
And
that.
yeah, so I quit a multiple six-figure job in tech marketing because I was so burnt out and I was traveling all over the world and I was leading global teams and launching global websites and building software, and it was crazy. And I had toddlers, right? So I had at the time, I think my kids were 3 and 4.
Wow.
So, uh, my life had just gotten to be a BlackBerry and a frozen burrito over the sink. And my kids knew their nanny and my dad and their dad. And I was like this lady that came in. I mean, I was still mom very much, but it was just just wasn't working. And I got the slight tap on the shoulder from my husband one evening. He said, I don't I don't I don't really like you anymore. And I said, oh my God. Well, something has to
That's some
change.
honesty.
And we had a really frank conversation about, at that point we had already been together almost a decade, and we had a really honest conversation about what we had wanted our lives to look like. And it didn't look like that, right? We didn't have creativity. We didn't have flexibility. We didn't have freedom. All we had was the paychecks. And so I decided to leave. I gave my 30-day notice. I had no safety net because I was young. I was like, I just wasn't at that point where the whole safety net thing even came into play, right? It's like, I made it, I spent it, we made it, we went on vacation somewhere, we did.
No, you're living in
So,
California with 2 toddlers. It's not like a
yeah,
inexpensive lifestyle.
I just, so like so no safety net. We didn't even own our home. Right. So we were very much like creative thinkers and like, we don't need a home. We're going to travel the world and all of this. So no safety net, quit the job and decided to think about how I wanted to create my life. And it was a little bit early on in the whole online learning and subscription game, but I knew that I wanted to take the things that I knew how to do, right? I wanted to start with what I knew. And I am a trained chef. And I used to, in my very, very early 20s, I taught cooking. So I knew about nutrition and food, and my kids were really little. And I wanted to do something that was more family related. And I wanted to do something online that didn't have physical products so that I could actually travel when I wanted to, or go to the movies on a Wednesday and not have to worry about, shipping or, people having to show up in an office, or so I wanted all of those things. So they kind of converged into this idea of, what can I do that takes my experience and my knowledge and what I know and what I want and create. And so I created the Fresh 20 out of a need for other families like ours that had busy working parents and wanted to be part of the food revolution, but nobody was teaching them how. It was like,
Right.
you should eat kale and you should go to the farmer's market and, buy kale. And then it was like a science experiment at the end of the week. So I just started researching and doing due diligence, and settled on being able to create 5 weeknight meals with 20 fresh ingredients every week, and started the Fresh 20 by myself, kitchen table, $2,500 investment. No high tech. I didn't want to build software. I was getting out of that, right? So I was PayPal, WordPress, and my own personal email is what I started with.
I remember
And
that.
within oh my gosh, so within 3 years we hit 7 figures. And um and then within the fourth year, multiple seven. And then um yeah, it was a crazy journey to go from corporate, having a team and having like all these people, then and you're responsible to like this higher power, right? There's
Yeah.
something, it's in the ether, the higher power, to like literally being responsible for yourself at your own kitchen table. And if it doesn't get done, there's like, you can't turn around and go, you didn't do this, or this department messed up, or whatever. It was like all on me. So
Yeah.
it's really motivating though, because when you want something to work and you want to serve and you want people to be using it, you're motivated to figure things out. I did everything the hard way when I started, but I learned a lot, and I just kept reiterating, and I just kept, uh, taking my licks and learning, and then pushing forward and learning and figuring it out and messing up and having errors, and you just keep doing that. And the secret of business is that that never goes away, whether you're just starting, or you're a 5 figure company, or a 6 figure company, or a 7 figure company, or an 8 figure company, or a 9 figure company. Everybody is working, making mistakes, reiterating, fixing. They're failing and learning. And that, if you can accept that
Right.
as a business owner, and not take it on personally, and just keep doing that, then there is success at the end of that path for anyone.
Yeah. I love that. So what does Fresh 20 look like today? And then I also want to talk to you about that you offer support to people who want to start memberships as well.
So today, it's gone through so many different iterations. At the height of it, we had, I guess there was 12 of us, and we were all virtual. And first it was about revenue. So there was, the actual production and customer service. And then I was like, wait, there's no process, and we're not doing books. So then we added, you know, finance, and operations, and production, and then we're like, wait, now we don't have marketing. So we've slowly but surely like found our way to make sure that all the different facets of business are being taken care of. But our team is still really streamlined, and I would say today there's probably no more than 7 of us,
Wow.
I want to say, right now, and extremely streamlined. And we're bringing on and hiring, because when we see a gap, we want to fill it with someone in that area of expertise, which is very different than, let's say, 8 years ago. I just was like, no, there's 3 of us, somebody's got to take that, right? Somebody's got to do
Yeah.
that, which was one of the things that I'm sure that, working with so many entrepreneurs, that when you have that entrepreneur spirit, and you're smart and you're motivated, that you do take a lot on that you shouldn't be taking on.
Yes.
And I think that the most that my company grows is when I delegate and I hire the right people to be doing it. And I got out of the habit of saying, okay, like, customer service, you're going to do this now too. Like, you're going to do
Yeah.
something crazy. Like, you're going to do the financial reporting. It's like,
Yeah.
no, right? So yeah, so it's an evolving entity all the time, but we just keep trying to do better, be efficient, listen to our customers as much as possible, but still a really small team. And we've had over 200,000 subscribers, and we're really proud of what we do. And we just keep making those meal plans every
I know,
week.
they just keep coming.
They just
People need to keep
coming.
cooking. Dinner still needs to get made. It's like a really, really awesome business because it's like every week we got to put dinner on the table and you
Yeah,
need a
yeah.
solution for it. So you've grown this business on a $5 a month product to an incredibly successful place. With 7 employees, you had more, now you have a little bit less. They're very much specialized in particular areas of the business that you have identified that supports the overall ecosystem in the best way. Like, what do you think is about membership in particular? And I have a membership too that you're part of, which is amazing. What
Yeah,
do
I
you
love
think it
it.
is about membership in particular that creates sort of this unique dynamic that is unlike other business models?
I think the biggest thing, so there's two things. I'm going to move him. I see you cutting yours on the side.
Yeah,
He's
we both
they're,
have our dogs
they
here
get
on
they
camera
get
here.
very needy when you're on a podcast. Um, so there's two things. One, the first thing, that there's no way to have a wildly successful membership without process in place. It's one of the things that took me years and years to really understand, because people think, oh, I'm getting members and I'm getting subscribers, and they feel they're excited about it, and then they start to have churn and people start to drop off and they can't really figure out, and it's because they haven't actually dug in and made their process and procedures efficient enough so that there's always a fire somewhere, like literally always a fire. So process is, to me, the backbone of leverage. But what makes membership special to that, because that could be said of almost any company, right?
Yeah.
What makes membership, when you have relevant, it has to be relevant. And when you have process and procedure, and then you have a relevancy for your subscribers, for their lifestyle, for their needs, for their business, for their personal growth, whatever it might be, when you have those two things and they are lock and step in your business and you're looking after them, that's what makes membership so special. Let me give you a couple of examples of
I would
this.
love that.
So let's just talk about memberships and subscriptions for a second. So I'm going to talk about subscriptions mainly because that's Fresh 20 is a subscription model. And then I can talk about membership because I have another company that's that as well. So subscriptions are really about someone pays a monthly fee, they get access to product and service, right? So let's think about a membership that someone may, Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix is a subscription. Okay. Now, if Netflix did, and when they first started, they were, mailing in, mail out, keep it as long as you want, everything. Like, I think I used to pay like, $80 to watch one movie because I kept it for so long. So, so people are sending it. So Netflix is something that people are want to be entertained. They want to have new things. So now this digital version, right? It's relevant in their life. Netflix is amazing at this. Now, can you imagine if nothing new ever came out on Netflix?
Right.
If they didn't have they're getting so good at making it like it is, people need it, right? It's top 10 in the US today. They're customizing your list to like what you've watched the last 3 things. They're always showing you what's new on, right? They're keeping it relevant for you. So what you like and what you like to be entertained at is constantly showing up in your feed, right? They're making it relevant. Can you imagine if they didn't have the process and procedures behind that, right? If they didn't have the technology in place, that the software broke, that their customer service was awful, that their communication stream was really, really bad, that their business development wasn't working. So their process and procedures are totally in alignment with what's relevant to their client. If they didn't have both together, they would be a failed subscription like Blockbuster. Because Blockbuster did the same thing, but both of their things were broken. Their process was broken because they didn't get up and running and software and everything. They very much stayed in an old school frame of mind. And they weren't listening to the relevancy of their product. They weren't getting it that people weren't going to actually want to drive to the store anymore once they had this option, right? So you have these two giant companies. One took process and relevancy very, very seriously, and they're number one in the world. The other, they fell down on both of those. So those are two things that are really, really important, and where I see most people missing the mark. Pretty much a lot of the companies that I see or that I work with, they have one or the other. Very rarely do they have both.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you
So
need both to thrive.
yes. Yeah, that's so interesting. So when you're thinking about relevance, is there another example that you could provide that would be more like in the coaching space or in the space that a lot of our listeners are listening to that you can kind of think of?
Yes. So for example, a lot of people concentrate on the process, right? When it comes in the coaching, right? So they have their framework and they have their content and they build out their course and they have it all neat and it's all ready to go, right? And then they go, oh, I want clients, right?
Right.
But when they were building all of those things, their process and procedure actually is not set up to be relevant to the way that their clients live on a day-to-day basis and how their needs change week to week, month to month, right?
Mhm.
So they stuff their process, their courses into a membership
Mhm.
or a coaching membership, but the relevant piece of how is somebody going to use it, how are they going to break it apart when they fail, like where are the fail, like how am I going to be relevant, because you're giving them, I mean, let's call it a course, I'm going to call it canned content, right? Which is
Yeah.
amazing, right? And that's kind of the one of the things that was so great, because courses, it's like you could get it all up front, and people that are motivated and learn really well and can work on their own, it's a great way for them to get content. But let's face it, 80% of the people are not that
Right.
way, right? So coaches are now having to say, okay, I've got my process down, but how am I going to be relevant in their lives? And they're reaching out and they're asking, like, what problems do you have? Which problems are cyclical? Like, what keeps happening over and over again? And so the coaching for there's coaching to help people build a course, right?
Right.
Is not as relevant as coaching to help someone market a course.
Right.
So there might be process for both, but you cannot be continually relevant to me teaching me something that has a beginning date and an end date. That's not a membership.
Right. Right.
Right? A
Yeah.
membership is something that I can come in and I can constantly be learning. I can constantly be using what I'm getting from the membership to up level my business in some certain way. So that's why I say that a lot of people, they only have one or the other. They're either super, super, one-on-one coaching, then they've turned it into a membership, and then they're doing one-on-one coaching, but they're doing it as a group. So
Yeah.
they're like constantly on call for everyone and it's still one-on-one coaching. Or they have a library of content that someone has access to, but nobody's looking at it because they haven't made the connection of how that content is relevant and recurring in that person's life.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm like thinking about the advances. I'm listening to you because, we're still in our first year and like figuring out what is relevant and what people care about and what they use and what they don't use, and trying to, trim down what people are not using
Right.
so that we can
But I
create.
think the advanced is such a good example of what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
because you both come with so much content, right?
Mhm.
But you didn't want the advanced to be a course, right? So the best thing about the advanced, and where there's that thing, you have the process down of like, this is our framework for teaching you how to do this. And then that's coupled with, now, how does that work for you in your everyday life when you're building and you want to have partners and advocates and networking and everything? So if you had just had the advanced and just said, oh, you get access to this, and then we'll have alpha hours every once in a while. That is like, you have the process down, but you're not relevant. But you've
Right.
created the advanced around this concept of get to know each other, referral, the referral code, like not only teaching us how to do it all the time, but like putting us in environments where we have to be doing it and practicing and doing it. That's a long-term
Yeah.
membership that why would someone leave if the relevant piece of that is meeting and referring and getting referred by really amazing women?
Right.
Like there's so you've built in the relevance piece of that of and so that's a really good example of what I'm talking about. Your process of your framework of referral code and all of the different pieces of coursework, right, that you created and have and maintain, coupled with the relevance of like, yeah, but nobody knows who I am and I want to meet new people and I want to have new partners and I need new services and all of those things, right? That's a really, really, how you've set it up is really, really smart. And I'm sure that you'll find that the thing people aren't using as much is the library.
Yeah, it's 100% true. It's so interesting to hear you talk about this because we're almost at a year. We've done a few surveys. I would like to push them more and like get more people to fill them out because they're easy to kind of blow off and like incentivize them more and just get more data. Because, with a membership, I think a lot of what you're saying is so true for people who think that they might want to have one or they're growing one. It's so easy to let it become a little bit of the junk drawer, right? Like people need this and you put it in the drawer and you need it and you put it in the drawer and like, and then at a certain point it actually hurts the relevance and then you've got to kind of dial it back. So one of the things that I'm actually rolling out in a few weeks is this relationship marketing growth plan where every 90 days we get together and we talk about how you're going to utilize the resources to either increase your credibility, visibility, or referral partners, and like continue to do that. But it's interesting to hear you say that because it's so different. Because Callie, my business partner, has grown her business to 8 figures a year through coaching, and it's so different than a coaching program. It's so
Mm,
different in that way. It's like, I think a good fit for people who have that continuous process improvement thinking, like they think about things that way. And then it's probably a hard fit for somebody who's like, oh my gosh, I have to keep improving this thing, like, and it's like, yeah, you do, like, that's membership, but then that's the hard part about it. But then what are some of
yes.
the upsides of membership from your perspective?
Oh my gosh. So, well, for me, the constant iteration is an upside, right?
I like that too.
Because you're so, a membership should be built. People that want to set it and forget it, it's not the game for them, right? you,
Right.
you know create a course or sell a one-off products and spend your marketing time marketing those products. There's lots of people that come to me and ask me, well, I want to do a membership because I did this book, I did this, I did a PDF and, I sold $200,000 worth of it. And so now I want to have a membership. And I'm like, okay, let's walk through that.
Yeah.
Walk through, tell me why. Like, well, I just think, well, I could create a new book every single month and then I could get all these members. And what I typically tell someone that comes to me and they said, well, if you could sell $200,000 worth of a book, you could sell $2 million worth of a book. So why not put your efforts into marketing what you already have instead of getting in to a content loop with members? Because trust and believe, when people start paying you and you say that this is what it's going to be, they have expectations. They
Yes.
want it. They want what you said you were going to get. So the time to iterate on a membership is not 3 months later going, oh my gosh, like I can't create this anymore. Like I'm going to have to change the membership. Right.
Yeah.
So I like to get people I like to try and nip it in the bud and say,
Right.
do this first, because the opportunity is not always jumping in to the care and feeding of members on a month to month basis, right? It's a big responsibility. And typically Like a lot of people want to, like I said before, take their content and then serialize it and call it a membership. And that is not there's very few people that I mean, I'm trying to even think of one. There's
I've heard
very
of
few
a few,
people
but not many.
that have, there's not a lot of
There's
success
not a lot. And it's a
with that
very
model.
specific outcome.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
very, very specific, like work at this thing, listen to us, come and ask us questions until you get the thing. But then you get the thing and you don't really need it anymore.
Well, true. I mean, it has a life cycle. So,
Right.
for example, Facebook ads, it has a life cycle.
Right.
Typically an entrepreneur wants to fix an immediate problem, right? They want to have better Facebook ads, or they want to um, figure out how to grow with Facebook ads. That's an immediate problem. It might not be a repeatable process. So how does that factor in to having a membership that somebody can be involved in for 4, 5, 6 years, right? Because that's really what you want to figure out. So thinking about those things up front, okay, their problem is Facebook ads. They're going to come to me, they're going to learn how to do it, they're going to tell their team how to do it, they're going to figure that out. But then what's their next problem? And so that's the iteration that can happen, is like continually thinking, right? So if it was me, I would have, it would be a marketing membership,
Yeah.
not specifically Facebook ads, but a marketing membership, because marketing never goes away if you're a business owner, right? So it's bring me all, but like, let's get together and have a cohort and figure out how we are going to consistently on a month-to-month basis up level our marketing, right? That becomes a membership that somebody can be involved in for a really, really long time, right? But people get members signed up based on their immediate problem, and then they wonder why they leave, or they wonder why they are not satisfied, or something happens. So it's good to think about these things on the upfront of doing your membership. Of course there's room for iteration. At the first 20, we had to iterate a little. I mean, we didn't have to, but I started to grow as a person. And as my kids got older, meal plans were like, okay, I think I've got this figured out for myself. Right. And so I was thinking my subscribers might be feeling like the same way. What's the next step? And so in 2015, we introduced wellness programs into it. Right. And we introduced mind body resets, so that a few times a year, you can reset your body by taking out gluten, sugar, and dairy for 4 weeks. And so we started doing these because that was a way for us. They still have their regular membership, but it was a way for us to be like, okay, what other ways is this affecting their lifestyle? Like how is their overall eating going, and what can we do? So there are places to iterate in a business, but you thinking about the long-term value of your proposition to your member is the best you can do. And a lot of times I walk my clients through, let's look at what your customer life cycle looks like for 3 years.
Yeah.
Tell me what that is. Because if you can tell me what that is, we're in business now. Like now we can work on the rest of it. But most of them get lost after 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So as we're kind of wrapping up this podcast episode, which has been so, so helpful, what are some final things that you want to leave people with when it comes to thinking about memberships, growing memberships, and just your overall experience with creating your own?
I think start with what you know would be my number one thing, right? So you can have a membership in almost anything. I mean, you and I have a friend in our mastermind that has a membership on upholstery, right?
Oh yeah.
It's amazing. It's like
So smart.
it makes you, and there's artists that have membership now that they like actually teach pieces of art every month. And so start with what you know. Don't go out and try to have a membership about something that you think might sell, but it's not really what you know how to do, right?
Yeah.
I would never have a membership on financial practices or accounting or anything like that, because that's not my channel.
Right.
Right. So start with what you know. 2, I would not complicate it. I would start with the most minimal viable product that you can in a membership, and then add and co-create with your members. Um, don't try to offer too much off the bat. Don't try to make the technology. There's a lot of people that I talk to, and most of my clients come to me and they're like, the biggest question is, well, what software should I be using? And when they explain to me what software, what they're actually doing, and I'm like, oh, you need WordPress and Stripe, right? Like,
Like
you
not
don't
very
need anything
hard.
else
Yeah.
but that. Like, why are we overcomplicating this? You don't need to build any software. Like, you need WordPress and Stripe. So don't complicate, especially the technology. Don't complicate the content. Don't complicate the technology. Minimal viable product. And test your offer. I cannot say this enough. Like, there's no way that the Fresh 20 would have been able to grow into what it is if I didn't like start with one thing. I started with one classic meal plan, and that was my only offer. It was $5 a month. And I started with that. And it was only that for my first year until I got enough information and data and feedback and failure and everything coming from it. And then I added vegetarian, and then I added gluten-free. And this is a process that it took, because I wanted to be relevant, but I didn't have my process down. So once I got one process down, I was able to expand, right? So make a smaller offer than you think you need to, because really getting that, optimizing that one thing will lead you towards a path of being able to grow and scale. Because and so please, please, please start small. Small is the new black.
Awesome. I love that advice. It's so good. All right. So if people want to learn more about how to connect with you, what is the best way then to get in touch?
I mean, you can check us out. The website's thefresh20.com, and always on Instagram, at thefresh20 on Instagram. And I'm on at Melissa Baker Lanz on Instagram. LAN as in Nancy, Z as in zebra.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I love this conversation. I know our listeners will too, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, Laura.